Justin Trudeau only pretends to stand up for Canada. You know, he's very good at pretending things. He can't even remember how many times he put blackface on, because the fact of the matter is he's always wearing a mask. He puts on a reconciliation mask and then fires the Attorney General, the first one of Indigenous background. He puts on a feminist mask and then fires 2 strong female MPs for not going along with his corruption. He puts on a middle-class mask and then raises taxes on middle-class Canadians. Mr. Trudeau, you are a phony and you are a fraud and you do not deserve to govern this country.
Mr. Bernier, you like to tweet, so let me read some of your tweets back to you. You called diversity in Canada a cult and extreme multiculturalism. You've used the words ghetto and tribes to describe newcomers whom you say bring distrust and potential violence. On Greta Thunberg, the 16-year-old climate change activist, you've called her, quote, clearly mentally unstable. Are these the words of someone with the character and integrity to lead all Canadians and represent us on the world stage?
We are a diverse country and we are proud of that. What I'm saying, because it's in line with the immigration, I'm saying that we must have fewer immigrants in this country to be sure for these people to participate in our society.
You could have just said, hey man, I messed up. Because those are pretty horrible tweets that you made. The way to build the future is to help Canadians the people that need policies.
You won't be able to help Canadians with your socialist policies. It will hurt everybody.
It's not going to help anybody.
It will hurt everybody. It's not the way to build wealth and growth in this country. You must believe in people. You must give back their money in their own pockets.
What you're saying is not helpful.
How many seconds will you leave me before you jump in? Somebody invoking the truth should not be somebody denying climate change. And the use of socialism seems to come a little bit too easy.
I don't deny climate change.
Oh, you made 10 seconds. Immigration,
we were worried they wouldn't pay attention.
Is not that much a matter of number. It's a matter of resources. We invest in it in order to have those persons welcome, as well in Canada as they are in Quebec, with our desire for them to share our language, to share some of our values. And if we do have enough resources invested in that, this is workable.
Unfortunately, Mr. Bernier on this stage is playing that role of trying to make people more fearful about the migrations that are happening in the world, in the opportunities around globalization, and our ability to continue to redefine every single day what it is to be Canadian, what it means to be Canadian. And yes, it will evolve. It will transform itself as we take leadership, as we move forward. And
you always want to celebrate. You always want to celebrate our diversity.
People around the world
we must celebrate our history. We must celebrate who we are. And I'm proud Canadian like you. And, you know, we built this country together, and we want this country to be like that in 25 years. We love this country, and it's not because I want to have a discussion about immigration that I'm a radical.
Only your role 6%, on this stage tonight seems 6%. To be to say publicly what Mr. Scheer thinks privately.
No. Only 6% of Canadians want more immigration, only 6%. So when you don't want to have a debate about that, you're not in line with the population. Let's just have an honest debate on that subject.
Okay.
Mr. Singh, you have spoken very eloquently about discrimination and fought against it all your life. And that's why it's so surprising to have heard you say, like every other leader on the stage, that a federal government under you would not intervene in the question of Bill 21 in Quebec. It's a question where, yes, it's awkward politically because, as Mr. Blanchette says, it is very popular. But I am the only one on the stage who has said, yes, a federal government might have to intervene on this because the federal government needs to protect minority rights, needs to protect language rights, needs to protect women's rights, and needs to do that right across the country. You didn't say that you would possibly intervene. You didn't even leave the door open, and that's not leadership.
Let's be honest for a second here. Every single day of my life is fighting a bill like Bill 21.
So why won't you fight it if you form government?
Every single day of my life is challenging people who think that you can't do things because of the way you look. Every single day of my life, I channel the frustrations of people who feel that as well, that many people across our country who are told that they can't achieve what they want because of how they look.
So why not
I'm running to become Prime Minister of this country. I'm going to go back and telling people, I want to be your Prime Minister.
Conservative leader Andrew Scheer, you may pick any leader of your choice and ask any question of your choosing. You have 30 seconds.
Mr. Trudeau, you broke ethics laws twice. You interfered in an ongoing criminal court proceeding. You shut down parliamentary investigations into your corruption, and you fired the only two people in your caucus who were speaking out against what you were trying to do just for telling the truth. Tell me, when did you decide that the rules don't apply to you?
Mr. Scheer, the role of a Prime Minister is to stand up for Canadians' jobs, to stand up for the public interest, and that's what I've done, and that's what I will continue to do every single day. The way I have worked for Canadians is around investing in them, unlike the vision that you're putting forward of giving tax breaks that help people who are making $400,000 a year, $400,000 a year, more than someone making $40,000 a year. You're offering a $50,000 tax break, which is more money than most Canadians earn, to the wealthiest Canadians with your plan. Of course, we don't entirely know your plan because you haven't released your costed platform yet, which I think is a disrespect to every Canadian
Where's your
watching
costed
tonight.
platform?
Our costed platform
Half
came
of
out
it
2 weeks
isn't
ago.
Mr. Scheer, you will have a chance to rebut.
Half of your platform isn't even costed. You're making announcements without any details and without any numbers. And
That
you
is
aren't telling
entirely
Canadians
untrue, Mr.
how you're going to pay for
You're
it.
the one who is
but we
hiding
know
your
that
platform
taxes
from
will
Canadians.
go up under your government if you are re-elected.
We lowered
and you
taxes
talk about,
for the middle
we
class
started off talking
and
about
raised
your
them on the
corruption
wealthiest 1%,
and your scandal.
and you voted against
You looked
that.
Canadians in the eye and you said that the allegations in the Globe and Mail were false. You said Jody Wilson-Raybould
They were
never
false.
came to you. You said you never put pressure on her. We now know that those were all lies. You have failed to tell the truth on this
Mr.
corruption
Scheer,
scandal.
the responsibility of any Prime Minister is to stand up for jobs, and what
And
you're
the
saying is
CEO
you wouldn't
the
have done
CEO
it.
The
So
Mr.
here's what
CEO
we
of
have here.
SNC
I
Lavalin
can just
said
chime
he
in.
never
Mr.
threatened
Scheer,
jobs
you
or
wanna go
moving
on and on, I
the
know.
headquarters.
Let me
You
just
are making
stop
that
you for
up
one quick
again.
sec. What we have here is Mr. Trudeau, Mr. Scheer arguing about who's worse for Canada. Really, we should be. We got to start arguing. We got to start presenting who's going to be best for Canada.
When Mr. Trudeau tried to find a solution, he did it the wrong way, and he admitted it. What you are doing, Mr. Scheer, is playing this old card. You're trading the idea that Quebec is corrupt.
No, that is
Those
not true.
3,400 people have done nothing wrong. Now the value of the shares are going down. The employees are leaving. The clients are leaving.
Mr. Blanchette, with
and
all
we
due
are
respect,
losing it all
with all due
because
respect,
of you.
there is never an excuse for a Prime Minister to interfere in an independent court
but I was
case.
talking
We
to
do
you, by
not
the way.
want to live in a country where someone can abuse the power of their office to reward their friends and punish their enemies.
And
It
those
is
people have to pay
essential
the
that
price
we
for that.
preserve the
Innocent people pay the
independence-
price for that.
independence
I
of
just
our
want
judicial
to
system,
add,
and that has been extremely
Andrew, that I
damaged by
was the
Mr.
only
Trudeau's
leader who said
actions.
no corporation is above the law. I was the only one who said that.
That's not true.
I think I said that too, Max.
Yeah, it
It
is.
may be the only thing on which we agree that no corporation is above the law, and
Good.
we need an inquiry into what went
It's a
on
nice beginning.
on the SNC
What a
Lavalin
wonderful
ethics scandal.
show of unanimity on this wonderful topic.
We all remember 10 years of Stephen Harper, who did not respect Indigenous rights, did not respect Indigenous peoples. And Mr. Scheer, you're putting forward exactly the same plan that didn't just fail Indigenous peoples, didn't just fail Indigenous communities and their kids, but they also failed to get important energy projects built. We need to keep moving forward in a way that respects Indigenous peoples, respects that there's going to be a range of views, but is grounded in the UN Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples that you have consistently blocked through your party's actions. That is not respect for Indigenous peoples. Perry Bellegarde, the Grand Chief of the head of the Assembly of First Nations, has said that no government has done more for Indigenous peoples than this government, and he's one of your constituents, Mr. Scheer.
That's right. He comes from Little Blackbear in my
He'd love to talk
riding.
to you.
He's
asked
got
me
my
to
phone number.
give you a phone call sometimes.
I have nothing to learn from Mr. Trudeau, who fired the first Indigenous Attorney General for doing her job. She said that she would do politics differently, and you fired her when she did. And you want to talk about getting pipelines built? You've canceled 2 pipelines, and the one you bought, you can't build. You've let tens of thousands of people in Alberta and Saskatchewan down, and you have failed to recognize that Indigenous communities are hurt by this as well.
The science is clear. Your target is a commitment to failure. That's why it's so doable and achievable, because it doesn't do what the IPCC says we must do. We must go off fossil fuels as quickly as possible. And you bought a pipeline. You can't be a climate leader and spend $10 to $13 billion more on a project that by itself blows through our carbon budget.
Okay.
We have to actually
A slogan is not a plan.
No,
Ms.
we have a plan.
A slogan
Check
is not a
mission
plan. It is an unrealizable
honestly,
plan.
no,
Canadians
it's been
need that
assessed by a
action
group.
that is going to actually make us
But
better,
if-
fight climate change, protect the environment, and build a stronger economy for our kids. That's what we have
With all due
done
respect-
more over the past 4 years than
Yes,
any
of
government in the history
No,
of
that's not
Canada.
true.
And there
Paul
is
Martin did
much
more, but
more
that's all
to
right.
do.
You're
There is
too-
much more to do.
No one remembers Paul
that
Martin's
is
plan in 2005. It was
He
better.
didn't
But the
deliver
reality
on
is,
that
if you
plan.
have
Over the past
if you
4
have a
years,
fire,
we delivered on
if you
it.
have a fire in a
Could we
four-story
let some
building,
other
getting a
leaders in
one-story ladder doesn't do it.
Mr.
That is
Scheer.
completely false. And just because you say something over and over and over again doesn't make it true. There's
it would
no
be nice for
Canadian,
you to learn that,
there's
Mr.
no
Scheer.
Canadian, there's no Canadian that believes that they're going to be better off by paying a carbon tax. You have given a massive exemption to the country's largest polluters, and your plan is
economists,
already
the experts, the
failing.
parliament.
I want to say this
Yes.
directly to Canadians. You do not need to choose between Mr. Delay and Mr. Deny. There is another option. There is another option out there. We are committed to a real plan that's going to take on the biggest polluters. It's going to take on the powerful interests, because that's what we need to do if we want to build a better future.
What is your target?
It's going to mean taking on the powerful. That means we're going to have to
You
cut
can
our
take
emissions
on the
by more than
powerful,
half.
But you need to have a
It
plan
absolutely
that
means
is rooted
it
in a
absolutely
target
means we've got to
that
take it on.
saves our kids' futures.
People must know that Mr. Scheer and Mr. Trudeau, you're the same on climate change. You want to impose a carbon tax on Canadians, and you want to impose more costly regulation
I think
on
that's the most
businesses,
offensive thing
and
you've said all night,
and you
Max,
want to
that we're the
impose
same on
into
climate
also-
change.
You want to impose also a big
think he said a lot
tax
more
on the
offensive
big
things.
emitters. So you're the same on climate change,
Our
and you
plan-
won't be able to
I'd like
achieve
to
your
go to a few
targets.
seconds with Mrs. May, please.
Yeah.
I think you and I have to find some common grounds when we get into that House of Commons.
I don't think it will be on GNL Quebec and the fact that you're supporting a project that blows through more of the carbon budget against the will of many Quebecers and threatens the St. Lawrence River.
This
with
is not
shipment.
what I had in mind, and I've provided answers to that. I think the
When-
goal should be down to almost nothing.
Yes.
Not 13, not 16, not almost nothing. And what do you think about this idea of an equalization based on gas emissions? Those who are over the average emissions of Canada pay, and those who are under the average emissions get the money. The incentive is for both parts.
What we have to do is work together, and with all due respect, that was the question I asked Mr. Trudeau. Are any of you prepared to accept the notion of changing status quo decision-making so we form an
Certainly.
internal cabinet
My only requirement
based
is-
The
on,
principle
based
of
on
that-
My
fighting
only
the
requirement is
existential
that I would
threat
not
of
work with
climate
Principle
change.
of that is good, but I
Okay,
would
that's
certainly
all
think
that-
work with
accusation
others.
does not help.
We're going to help fight climate change by bringing in the green home renovation tax credit, which will put money in the pockets of Canadians and help lower emissions. And we're going to pay
It
for that.
won't lower
I'll just
emissions.
finish.
It'll cause
If
them to go
we-
through the roof.
The way we're going to pay for those is by cutting corporate welfare and reducing Canada's foreign aid budget by 25%. So we're going to stop sending money to the relatively well-off countries. We're going to bring that money back home so that Canadians can get ahead.
Mr. Scheer, that may be the worst idea in your whole non-platform, is the cutting of foreign aid. I wear this little pin. This is the
I believe it's
Sustainable
time for
Development
Canadians to get
Goals
a
of the
break.
United Nations, to which this country is committed. Ending poverty within the next decade, within Canada and globally, is actually possible, but not if we ever had the misfortune of having your
I believe we should take that
short-term,
money and bring it back
misguided,
home so that Canadians
greedy
can
and
get
selfish
ahead.
policies.
It's not greedy
Okay.
to put money in the pockets of Canadians, Ms. May.
We're
I
going-
fundamentally
Putting
disagree with you.
pocket money-
We're going to stop you there.
It destabilizes the world, what you're proposing.
Like millions of Canadians, I am personally pro-life. And it is okay in this country to have a difference of opinion, something
Yes,
you do not
but
recognize.
Canadians
and it is
need
beneath,
to know-
it is
for a man
beneath
Canadians
the office
need
of
to
Prime
know
Minister to
that their Prime
demonize
Minister-
people for their
Canadians
views.
need
The
to know that
laws
their
and
Prime
access
Minister-
One at a
on
time,
this
please.
issue-
One at a time,
The
please.
laws
Let
and
me-
access on this issue have not changed for 30 years under Liberal Prime Ministers, under Conservative Prime Ministers.
Scheer, let me help you out here.
Canadians
Change
need
when
to
I
know
am Prime
that
Minister.
their Prime Minister
That
will be
is
there
my
to defend
position.
them. And
Sure,
you
I
have
have
been,
just answered that
you
question.
have been
Let's
not
allow Mr.
unequivocal on
Singh
defending
a
women's
moment.
rights. You're signing the
This is true. This is
nomination
good for you too. You're
papers
gonna like this too.
of people
you
who
want
want
to
to
nomination
take
papers?
away
How about your
rights of-
misogynist,
No one is
racist
hearing you right
candidate
now.
in Nova Scotia?
the nomination
man
papers
has
for
no
people who have
place
pledged
can't-
to
at a
take away
discussion
rights
around
from
women's right to
women.
choose. Mr.
I
Scheer,
know.
let me help you out, man.
You're having a
struggling
mini
here.
debate
You're
over
struggling.
here. Can we bring in
A man
Mr.
has
Singh?
no position in a discussion on a woman's right to choose.
How about
Let's
a
be
woman's
very
right to
clear on that.
speak in a debate?
Be very clear.
How about interesting for most of this campaign to hear a lot of men arguing about what a woman's rights should be, but having all of you, except for Max, participated in the TVA debate where you were perfectly happy to keep women off the stage. I'm the only woman leader of a party. You participated in a debate which did not let our little girls see that there's a chance for a woman in this country to be prime minister, to run as the leader of a party. We must be clear as all leaders, and you are not clear, Andrew, that we will never allow a single inch of retreat from the hard-earned rights of women in this country, not 1 inch.
This is
To avoid catastrophic levels of global warming. We must double our current target. We must listen to science. We must not build the Trans Mountain Pipeline. It's not the last because it gets canceled if we're serious. You can't negotiate with physics. You can't as Prime Minister, you can't as leader of the Liberal Party. There's a carbon budget. It doesn't budge. And that's why it's so heartbreaking for me to look at you today and know you could have done so much more the last 4 years. Please, God, you don't get a majority this time around because you don't keep your promises.
From the Rockies to the Bay of Fundy, Conservative premiers have gotten elected on promises to do nothing on climate change, and we need a strong federal government to fight them, to make sure that we are moving forward on protecting the future generations from the impacts of climate change.
But your goal is a target for failure. When you hang on to Harper's target of 30% by 2030,
we are going to pass that target, Ms.
Well,
May.
you better get to double that target, or you never get to carbon neutrality by 2050.